Hey, I'm here with Steve Bannon, who is the writer and director of The Undefeated. Explain how documentary filmmaking has changed since your first film.
To anybody that's watching Gen Y TV, the technology is out there and it's only getting cheaper and it's only getting more accessible. All of my crews are basically my editing crew, my grips, gaffers, sound, everything. I use people under the age of 30.
How do you determine which issues are most relevant?
I tell filmmakers, particularly young filmmakers, you've got to find a topic that you're so passionate about because it's going to take you basically a year of your life to work on any film. And so you've got to love the subject matter. You've got to really have a story you want to tell. You have to get it down on paper. You have to beat out the story. You have to argue it through with your production crew and with your producers. You have to really understand what you're trying to get and going to tell a story.
Why Sarah Palin?
Her story's never been told. And the empirical evidence is out there that she's an incredibly accomplished executive that took on a corrupt and compromised political class virtually single-handed. And what shocked me is that even Fox and the conservatives had never told that story. This woman is characterized that she's some weird convergence of Caribou Barbie and Bible Spice. Right? I mean, that's how the mainstream media portrays her. She's mocked for one reason. She doesn't have the union card. In the union card, she doesn't have an Ivy League degree. What I wanted to show was pop culture. It's very different. It's what your generation is saturated in. I do that for a reason. I am trying to get an emotional reaction out of an audience at the very beginning.
How is it that what we're learning today is going to be affecting how we live tomorrow?
The problem we have is crony capitalism. You have a unique convergence of big government, big business, and big finance, all colluded together to make decisions for themselves. And the Obama administration is the epitome of this. The baby boomers are the most spoiled, most self-centered, most narcissistic generation the country's ever produced. And now we're in the middle of a financial crisis which directly affects your generation, directly affects it. And nobody's discussing the fact of when they talk about shared sacrifice, they're talking about shared sacrifice between the economic classes. It has to be shared sacrifices of the generation. The financial crisis today is your generation's Vietnam, but it seems like people are more concerned about what Snooki and the situation are up to than something that's going to affect you forever. I have a daughter that's 23 years old that just graduated from West Point. She's a logistics officer with the 101st Airborne in Iraq right now. I've noticed in following her and people at West Point and in the military that your generation is among the bravest generations we've ever had. The wars in Iraq and Afghanistan are two of the hardest wars the United States has ever fought. It's not like the first Gulf War, it's not like World War II. It's not a war of generals. This is a war of senior enlisted and junior officers. These kids, for instance, the Battle of Fallujah, they had to kick down 1 million doors. You're the first generation of 14 generations this country's had since its founding that is being bequeathed a country that has less net worth and less wealth. And what shocks me is that so many of your generation are just naturally drawn to liberal progressive policies, which are so obviously against their own economic self-interest. You have the unfortunate problem of having to pay for a baby boom that came before you, but you're not going to really have anybody in back of you that's able to pick up the tab for your own. Unless this discussion changes rapidly, like the debt discussions just went on in Washington, your generation is literally going to be wiped out even before it starts.